A billionaire takes his young son out to dinner on Christmas Eve, seeking a sense of normalcy. But when he witnesses a moment of quiet struggle, a poor single mother sharing a meager plate of food with her daughter, he steps far outside his corporate world and commits an act of kindness so profound, it redefines the meaning of the holiday for everyone involved. Christmas Eve had draped the streets of Denver in a soft, ethereal white. Fine, silent flakes of snow drifted down from the darkening sky. The main thoroughfares were ablaze with holiday splendor. Storefront windows, framed in frosted glass, glittered fiercely with red velvet bows, strands of cascading gold lights, and shimmering tinsel. The air was a sharp, biting cold, yet it was sweetly scented, thick with the comforting aromas of hot cinnamon, crisp pine needles, and burning fireplaces. A perfume unique to December nights. Shoppers hurried past, laden with colorful, tissue paper-stuffed bags, their faces glowing with a mix of cold and festive haste. Andrew Collins tightened his grip on his small son's mittened hand, guiding him along the snowy, slightly slushy sidewalk. Thomas, a burst of energy in a bright blue snowsuit, happily stomped through shallow puddles of melted snow near the curb, his large, intelligent brown eyes wide with the simple curiosity of a 5-year-old. "Daddy, where are we eating?" the boy asked, bouncing slightly. "At your favorite place, champ. The one with all the big golden lights in the window." Thomas rewarded this answer with a radiant, gap-toothed smile. Andrew mirrored the gesture, but his own smile was fragile, worn thin by effort. It had been 2 agonizing years since Sarah had passed away, and the magic had been leached out of Christmas. He worked ceaselessly to fill the void for Thomas. He bought the mountain of presents, painstakingly decorated every room, roasted the perfect, juicy turkey. Yet, despite all the elaborate effort, the essential warmth was permanently missing. The heavy oak door of the restaurant opened with a bright jingle of brass bells attached to the handle. A wave of luxurious, overheated air rushed out to meet them, instantly thawing the cold on their cheeks. Inside, the atmosphere was dense with celebration. Soft, orchestral holiday music drifted through the air, almost drowned out by the noise of merriment. Every darkwood table was occupied by families sharing platters of food, raising glasses and toasts, and filling the room with infectious, boisterous laughter. "Good evening, Mr. Collins." The hostess, sharp and efficient in her tailored uniform, greeted him smoothly. "Your usual table is ready." Andrew offered a polite nod of thanks, holding Thomas's hand firmly as they were led through the bustling room to a secluded booth positioned conveniently near a large, festive window. Thomas scrambled onto the leather booth seat, kneeling immediately so he could observe the entire scene. He had always been an intensely visual and observant child, always noticing people, idiosyncrasies, and the smallest details others overlooked. "Daddy, look at that man over there. He's wearing a funny hat." Andrew chuckled softly, following his son's pointing finger. "That's a Santa hat, Thomas. A Christmas tradition." "Oh, I want one of those." The waiter arrived with thick, leather-bound menus. Andrew ordered their standard fare. A medium-rare steak with mashed potatoes for Thomas, always the same, and a simple pasta dish for himself, along with a glass of orange juice. Nothing extravagant. Andrew Collins, despite presiding over one of the largest, most profitable environmental project firms in the entire country, actively avoided any form of ostentation. He preferred a quiet, discreet existence. He wore non-designer clothes, drove a dependable, unremarkable sedan, and treated black-tie galas like mandatory, yet painful, obligations. Thomas's small legs swung rhythmically beneath the table, marking time. "Daddy, do you think Mom is watching us right now?" The question struck Andrew like a physical blow, a sudden, sharp pang of grief in his chest. He took a slow, steadying breath. "I think so, son. I'm certain she's looking down on us right now." Thomas nodded slowly, his expression serious and thoughtful. "I miss her." "Me too, Thomas. Every single day." The boy fell silent for a few contemplative seconds, processing the vast, impossible reality of absence. Then, as quickly as the sadness arrived, It dissolved into childish curiosity. He pointed enthusiastically toward the towering Christmas tree twinkling in the corner. "Daddy, is that tree bigger than ours?" "I think it might be just a little bit taller," Andrew conceded, smiling genuinely this time. "But ours is definitely prettier." "Definitely." It was precisely at that moment, as Andrew and Thomas shared a fragile laugh, that the front door reopened, and the entire atmosphere of the evening irrevocably shifted. Emma Brooks entered the warm, glittering room, pulling her small daughter along by the hand. She struggled momentarily to hold the heavy door against a sudden gust of icy wind, allowing Lily to quickly dart inside. The child was visibly shivering. Her fine blonde hair was damp and clinging from the wet snow, but her wide blue eyes were alight with a mixture of apprehension and utter enchantment as she took in the opulent surroundings. "Stay close to me, honey," Emma murmured, her voice tight with tension. Lily nodded wordlessly. This was far beyond the scope of their normal life. It was likely the first time she had ever set foot inside a restaurant of such obvious luxury. Emma immediately felt the humiliating weight of being misplaced. Every patron seemed flawlessly dressed, perfectly polished, celebrating with effortless ease. Emma, meanwhile, wore a heavy, ancient coat, the cuffs threadbare from years of wear, and Lily was wrapped in a bulky, handmade scarf Emma had painstakingly sewn together from mismatched fabric remnants. The hostess approached, and her professional smile faltered, replaced by a swift, practiced mixture of pity and sharp social judgment. "Good evening. How many in your party?" "-2, Emma replied, keeping her voice deliberately low. "We were hoping for a quiet, small table, maybe somewhere in a corner, if possible." The woman glanced dismissively across the crowded, booming dining room and let out a dramatic sigh, conveying her annoyance. "I only have a small service table available in the very back, near the kitchen entrance." "That will be perfectly fine. Thank you," Emma said quickly, anxious to escape the scrutiny. Emma gripped Lily's small hand tighter, navigating past the glittering, laughing families. The table was tucked away as promised, a cramped little island near the frantic swing doors of the kitchen. The air here was hotter and humid, punctuated by the relentless, loud clanking of dishes being scrubbed and the sharp, booming shouts of the head chef barking orders. Lily managed to hoist herself onto the chair, kneeling to properly reach the pristine white tablecloth. She gazed around, her blue eyes wide with innocent wonder. "Mommy, it's so pretty here," she whispered, her voice reverent. Emma offered a faint, melancholy smile. "Yes, it is, sweetie." The waiter, a young man who seemed slightly bored, brought over a menu and waited expectantly. Emma opened the heavy cardstock and felt a leaden weight drop in her stomach, pushing the breath from her lungs. The prices were astronomical. A single steak cost $40. She quickly and discreetly counted the cash hidden inside her worn wallet. $23. That was the entirety of their disposable income, the grim remainder after she had paid the desperately overdue electricity bill hours earlier. Scanning the list for the absolute cheapest item, she forced her voice to remain steady. "We'll take the pasta," Emma told the waiter. "Just one order, please. We'll share it." The waiter noted the order without comment, his expression neutral, and turned to leave. Lily looked up at her mother, her brow furrowed in sudden, childish confusion. "Mommy, are we only eating this one plate?" Emma felt the immediate, hot sting of tears behind her eyes, the humiliating realization of her poverty laid bare. She swallowed hard, pushing the emotion down with fierce determination. "It's all we can afford tonight, sweetie." Lily said nothing more. She was only 5 years old, yet she possessed a painful, premature understanding of their circumstances. She already knew the reality of tight finances, the silent worry in her mother's eyes, and that some nights, dinner consisted solely of dry toast. Emma gently brushed the damp blonde hair back from her daughter's forehead. "But it will be delicious, okay? We'll share, and it's Christmas Eve. We are together, and that is what matters the most." Lily managed a small, brave smile in return. "Okay, Mommy." Emma lifted Lily's tiny hand from the table and squeezed it tightly, pouring all her love into the gesture. "I love you very much, you know that." I love you too, Mommy. Across the warm, brightly lit expanse of the dining room, Thomas had ceased swinging his legs and was no longer shredding his napkin into pieces. He was staring, transfixed, at the small, remote table near the kitchen doors, at the woman and the little girl with the damp, blonde hair. Andrew followed the sharp trajectory of his son's gaze. What is it, Thomas? Daddy. Those two over there, the boy whispered, pointing discreetly towards the back. They're only going to share one plate. Andrew turned his attention fully to the distant pair. He noted the young woman's tired, strained expression, the deep lines of worry that effort could not erase. He saw the small, blue-eyed girl, looking disproportionately tiny against the large chair. Most of all, he saw the way the mother gripped her daughter's hand, a silent transmission of strength and reassurance. Andrew understood instantly. Yes, son. Sometimes people don't have much money to spend. Thomas grew silent, momentarily staring down at the empty spot where his own elaborate dinner was soon to be placed. Then he looked back at the corner table. Daddy, he said again, his voice barely a breath. Can you buy their dinner, please? Andrew felt an intense rush of emotion, a powerful wave of pride mixed with aching tenderness, rise in his chest. You want me to help them? Thomas nodded vigorously, his brown eyes solemn. They look sad, Daddy. I saw it. The little girl asked if that was all they were eating, and her mom looked really sad, too. Andrew paused, taking a measure of his son. He saw the genuine, pure empathy radiating from the heart of this 5-year-old, and he felt, with absolute certainty, that Sarah would have been immensely proud. All right, Thomas. I'll help them. Thomas's small face instantly lit up, banishing the seriousness. Really, Daddy? Truly? Andrew raised a hand and signaled discreetly for their waiter. The man quickly navigated the room and approached their table. Yes, Mr. Collins? Do you see the small table in the back? The mother and daughter near the kitchen? The waiter glanced over his shoulder. Yes, sir. I want you to send them the exact same meal I ordered for my son. The steak, the baked potatoes, the green salad, juice, and dessert. Everything. Andrew paused, making his instructions crystal clear. And you are not, under any circumstances, to accept payment from them. It is to be placed entirely on my bill. The waiter blinked, his professional composure briefly dissolving into surprise. Are you quite sure, sir? Absolutely. And should I inform them who the generous donor is? Only if they explicitly ask. The waiter regained his professional smile. Understood, sir. He turned and swiftly left toward the kitchen. Thomas watched the transaction with strained anxiety. And will they like it, Daddy? I think so, son. It's a very good steak. And will they be happy? Definitely. Thomas leaned back against the seat, a deep, satisfied grin spreading across his face. Emma was quietly murmuring comforting words to Lily when the waiter returned, but he was no longer carrying a single, small plate of pasta. He approached their back corner table carrying an enormous serving tray laden with food. A perfectly cooked, succulent steak, steaming, buttery baked potatoes, a crisp green salad, a glass of fresh orange juice, and even a decadent chocolate dessert crowned with a swirl of whipped cream. Emma's eyes went wide, reflecting the golden light of the dining room. Excuse me, she whispered, quickly checking her order slip. I think you have the wrong table. No, ma'am. This is for you. Emma stared at the mountainous feast, completely confused. But I didn't order this. I ordered only one pasta dish to share. The waiter offered a gentle, knowing smile. Someone paid for you. It's a gift. Emma froze, momentarily unable to process the words. What do you mean? The gentleman over there, the waiter explained softly, tilting his head toward the front of the restaurant, near the window. Emma slowly turned her head. She saw a dark-haired man, impeccably dressed but without undue fuss, and seated next to him, a small boy with large, earnest eyes. The boy was looking directly at her, offering a shy, hesitant smile. The realization hit her with staggering force. It was the boy. A child had orchestrated this profound gesture. The tears she had held back earlier now burned freely. Did he do this? It was the little boy's idea, the The waiter confirmed quietly, setting the platter down. He asked his dad to help you. Emma pressed a trembling hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. Lily, meanwhile, was gazing at the platter, her blue eyes as wide as saucers. Mommy, is this really for us? Emma nodded, her voice a raw whisper, caught deep in her throat. It is, honey. It's all for us. Lily responded with an explosion of pure joy, a vast, unreserved smile that illuminated her whole face. He's nice, Mommy. Yes, he is, sweetie. Very, very nice. Emma glanced back across the room toward their benefactors. Andrew, catching her eye, raised his hand in a simple, calm acknowledgement. There was no condescension or pity in the gesture, only quiet, respectful kindness. Emma managed a shaky smile in return, feeling a rush of intense gratitude mixed with lingering embarrassment. Thomas gave a cheerful little wave, and Lily, beaming, waved back. The subsequent dinner was consumed in a charged silence, a deep and meaningful quietude. Emma and Lily ate slowly, almost reverently, savoring every single forkful. It had been years since they had tasted food of such quality. Lily giggled, detailing to her mother how flaky the potato was and how perfectly crispy the crust of the steak tasted. As she watched her daughter's face radiating uncomplicated happiness, Emma felt a profound, unfamiliar sensation stir in her chest, a feeling she had believed she had lost forever. Hope. Once the substantial meal was finished, Emma gathered her resolve. She wiped a stray smudge of chocolate from Lily's cheek, took a fortifying breath, and stood up. Come on, honey. We need to go and say thank you properly. They crossed the busy dining room. Andrew looked up as they approached, followed by Thomas, who watched them with shy anticipation. Emma took a final, deep breath. I just wanted to thank you both. Truly. This meant more than you can imagine tonight. Andrew smiled warmly. It's Christmas Eve, a time for sharing. And honestly, the credit belongs entirely to Thomas. He was the one who saw you and wanted to help. Thomas instantly flushed a deep, proud red, lowering his gaze. Lily stepped forward and offered her own genuine child-to-child smile. Thank you, she whispered. Thomas lifted his eyes and returned a tiny, happy grin. You're welcome. Emma offered a final, heartfelt smile to Andrew. She thanked them one last time, turned, and guided Lily back toward their small corner table, her heart feeling measurably lighter and warmer than it had been upon entering. When Emma and Lily finally stepped back outside, the heavy restaurant door swinging shut behind them, the snow was falling with a renewed intensity, large, wet flakes rapidly covering the pavement. Next door, the city square was magically illuminated. Tall, decorated fir trees, glowing wreaths hanging from lampposts, and a monumental Christmas tree blazing at the center. Lily stopped dead, her mouth open in awe. Mommy, look! Emma automatically started to hurry them toward the bus stop. But then she saw Andrew and Thomas emerging from the restaurant entrance. Thomas spotted Lily immediately, and his eyes widened with excitement. Do you want to play in the snow? Lily looked up at her mother, her face pleading. Emma hesitated, instantly defaulting to caution. Andrew approached, recognizing her reserve. Let them play for just a few minutes, he suggested, his voice kind and reassuring. It's fine. It's Christmas Eve. Emma nodded uncertainly. Released, the two children bolted for the square. They immediately threw themselves into the fresh snow, making frantic snow angels, tumbling, rolling, and playing an exuberant game of tag. Their sharp, clear bursts of laughter rang joyously through the cold night air. Andrew and Emma settled near a glowing lamppost, watching the chaotic delight of their children. Your son is very kind, Emma offered quietly, nervously fiddling with the frayed cuff of her old coat. He has a good heart, Andrew replied, a soft smile touching his lips. Sometimes I think he's a much better person than I'll ever be. Emma managed a genuine smile. I'm sure that's not true. He must have learned it from somewhere. A moment of comfortable silence stretched between them, filled only by the children's laughter. Christmas has felt a little empty at home, Andrew confessed, his voice dropping slightly. My wife, Sarah, died 2 years ago. Cancer. Since then, I try to build a semblance of normalcy for Thomas. But he misses her deeply, and I miss her too. Emma felt a deep, sympathetic tightening in her chest. I'm so sorry. I truly can't imagine how difficult that must be. Andrew gave a small, weary shrug, his focus remaining on Thomas. We manage for them, don't we? Yes, Emma agreed instantly. For them. What about you? He asked gently. Is it just you and your daughter? Emma nodded. It is. I work as a cashier at a neighborhood grocery store. I take any extra shifts I can get. I do what I must. But it's hard. Andrew looked at her with an intense, unvarnished respect, devoid of judgment. You are doing an incredible job. Look at Lily. She is beautiful, well-behaved, and completely happy. That means you are absolutely doing things right. Emma's reserve finally broke, allowing a broad, genuine smile to emerge. Thank you. That means a lot to hear that. They stood side by side, two lonely people temporarily connected by their watchful love for their children. In that moment, something shifted. Something small, tentative, yet undeniably real. A connection formed in the quiet glow of the lamppost. When the chill finally forced the end of the playtime, neither Lily nor Thomas wanted to separate. Can we play again? Thomas pleaded. Lily looked up at Emma, her eyes huge and desperately hopeful. Emma looked at Andrew. He smiled, a lingering, open expression. Maybe if your mom is willing. Emma felt a quick, warm blush rise to her cheeks. Maybe. They exchanged awkward, quick goodbyes. Andrew pulled Thomas one direction, heading toward his car, while Emma and Lily started walking toward the distant, cold bus stop. But as Emma glanced over her shoulder, she saw Andrew looking back as well. They held the silent gaze for a moment, then both smiled. A smile of mutual understanding and shared hope. That night, after a careful, lengthy tuck-in, Lily snuggled down under the thin blankets. Mommy, she whispered sleepily. Thomas is my friend now. Emma leaned down, kissing her daughter's forehead and smoothing the damp blonde hair. I know, sweetheart. He's very nice. Yes, he is. And his daddy is nice too. Emma smiled in the comforting dark, thinking of Andrew's kind eyes and quiet strength. He is. And for the first time in countless months, Emma drifted off to sleep with an entirely different, lighter sensation nesting in her heart. Something new was stirring, a fragile possibility she couldn't yet define, but which made her believe that perhaps life held the capacity for surprise. Maybe the world still contained genuine kindness, and maybe, just maybe, she and Lily were not quite so desperately alone after all. The large luxury sedan glided almost silently through the snow-dusted streets of Denver. Outside, Christmas lights shimmered like jewels in the windows of the silent houses, casting a warm, illusory glow against the deep white mantle of snow. Andrew drove slowly, with meticulous care, constantly vigilant for black ice on the roadway. In the back seat, Thomas was securely buckled in, his head leaning against the window glass. His brown eyes were heavy, blinking sluggishly as he fought the persistent pull of sleep. The car heater was purring softly, the gentle mechanical hum acting as a soothing, monotonous lullaby. Andrew glanced in the rearview mirror, catching his son's wide yawn. Tired, champ? Thomas nodded drowsily, but he continued to watch the window. The snow was falling in large, slow-motion flakes. He lifted a small finger and traced the path of a sliding flake down the cold glass. They remained in a comfortable silence for several minutes, broken only by the engine's low vibration and the muffled crunch of the tires on the fresh snow. Then Thomas spoke, his voice thin, quiet, and thick with sleep. Daddy, were they happy? Andrew felt a swift, unexpected tightness, a rush of affection and pride, in his chest. He checked the mirror again. Thomas's eyes were still fixed on the darkness outside, but he was waiting for affirmation. They were, son. Absolutely. You truly changed their entire Christmas today. Thomas turned his head slightly to face his father. I really changed it? You did. The boy fell silent, processing the gravity of that statement. A slow, deeply satisfying smile stretched across his face, and he turned back to the window. Andrew took a deep breath. He realized this was a pivotal moment. He needed to instill a lesson, something profound that Thomas would carry with him forever. Thomas, I want to explain something very important to you. What, Daddy? Andrew stopped the car at a red light. He turned his body slightly, looking directly into his son's earnest eyes. We have money, son. You know that, right? We have a big house. We have plenty of food. We have all the toys you could want. Thomas nodded, accepting this known fact. But having money is not the most important thing in the world. Thomas frowned, struggling to reconcile this concept. It isn't? No. What is truly important, what is truly rare and precious, is what you did today. What I did. Andrew smiled, his eyes alight with genuine admiration. You saw someone else struggling. You saw that those two people were sad and having a difficult night. And instead of ignoring it, instead of pretending you didn't see it, you wanted to help them. Thomas looked down at his lap, fiddling with his tiny hands. I didn't like seeing them share the food. I know, son. You knew the little girl was hungry, and her mom was sad, and you noticed that. Many people don't notice things like that. Many adults walk right past. But you saw, and more than seeing, you cared enough to act. The light changed to green. Andrew accelerated smoothly, but continued his conversation. Thomas, I want you to know one final thing. I am so incredibly proud of you. Thomas looked up, surprised by the intensity of the statement. You are? Very much. You're only 5 years old, and you already possess a bigger heart than many adults I know. You are fundamentally kind. You are good. And that, son, that is a quality money can never buy. It is priceless. Thomas responded with a slow, shy, yet profoundly happy smile. Would Mom have liked what I did? Andrew felt his throat tighten, the unexpected question bringing fresh grief. Quickly swallowed. She would have loved it, Thomas. Your mother always believed that the most important thing in life was simply to be a good person. And you are, Thomas. You are a good person. The boy absorbed the praise silently. He yawned again, rubbing his sleepy eyes with the back of his hand. Daddy. Yes? Can I see Lily again? Andrew smiled, profoundly touched. He hadn't anticipated this. Did you like her? I did. She's nice. And she plays really well in the snow. She does. And she laughed when I made the snow angel. She has a pretty smile. Andrew softly chuckled. His 5-year-old son was already noticing such things. She certainly does. So, can I see her again? Andrew paused. He didn't have Emma's number or her address. All he knew was that she worked at a local grocery store. But a deep, quiet instinct told him that their paths were destined to cross again. I hope so, son. I truly hope so. Did you like her mom? Andrew felt a quick, unexpected flush warm his cheeks. He hadn't expected that insight either. I did. She seems like a very good person. Very strong. She's pretty. Andrew offered a genuine smile. She is. And she loves Lily a lot. I saw it. You did? I did. The way she held Lily's hand. And the way she looked at her just like you look at me sometimes. Andrew felt his eyes suddenly sting with emotion. His son was frighteningly observant, deeply sensitive. You're absolutely right, Thomas. She loves her daughter very much. Just like I love you. I know, Daddy. They drove on through the silent, snow-covered city. The streets were nearly deserted. Most people were already nestled inside, celebrating the holiday with their families. Thomas yawned one last time, tilting his head to rest against the cool windowpane. Daddy, it was a good Christmas today. Andrew smiled, his gaze steady on the slick road. It was, son. It was a very good one. Better than last year. Why? Because we helped someone and I made a friend. Andrew felt a profound warmth bloom in his chest, chasing away the chill of the past 2 years. He drove in silence for several more blocks, listening as his son's breathing grew slow and deep. When he checked the mirror again, Thomas was sound asleep, his lips slightly parted, his face utterly peaceful. Andrew continued through the glittering city, past the illuminated houses and the twinkling Christmas trees. For the first time since Sarah had died 2 years ago, He felt a genuine, measurable lightness in his heart. It wasn't perfect happiness. The pain remained, the longing was still acute, and there would be more empty nights and difficult mornings. But there was something new layered over the grief. There was hope. There was the vivid memory of Emma's thankful, blue eyes, the sound of Lily's pure laughter playing in the snow with Thomas, and the concrete proof of his son's true, unblemished kindness. There was the small but certain conviction that life might still hold surprises, and that good things might yet be waiting for them. Andrew looked at his sleeping son and smiled. "I'm proud of myself, too, Sarah," he whispered into the quiet car, "because I raised this boy, this incredible boy, and I know you're proud of him, too." The snow continued its steady fall, draping the city in a thick, silent blanket. Andrew drove toward home with a heart that felt just a little less heavy, a little more expectant, and with the sudden, vital certainty that this Christmas Eve had changed something fundamental within him. The shrill ring of the alarm clock sliced through the 5:30 a.m. darkness. Emma opened her eyes and was immediately engulfed by the biting cold. Their tiny apartment was freezing. The ancient, asthmatic heater in the corner of the cramped living room was practically useless. When it ran, it managed only to warm a small, 6-foot radius. She hugged the thin blanket tightly around herself for a few lingering seconds, trying to summon the physical courage to face the icy floor. Beside her, Lily was deeply asleep, curled into a ball, her blonde hair fanned out against the pillow. Emma carefully stroked her daughter's head, then slid slowly out of bed, moving with painstaking caution not to disturb her. The floorboards were glacial. She swiftly pulled on her thick, worn socks and hurried into the minuscule kitchen area. She switched on the sputtering old coffee maker and waited, desperately rubbing her hands together for friction and heat. True daylight had yet to break. Outside, the world was breathtakingly blanketed in fresh snow, beautiful and pristine. But Emma saw only the exhausting, necessary effort of walking through that deep slush to reach the neighborhood grocery store for her early shift. The coffee dripped with agonizing slowness. She finally lifted the cup, gripping it with both hands, allowing the faint heat to soak into her chilled fingers. The coffee was pale, habitually weak. She always stretched the grounds as far as they would possibly go. She opened the cabinet door. Inside, there was a half loaf of slightly stale bread. It would be dry toast for breakfast. Again, Emma put 2 slices into the toaster and looked at the refrigerator stood half open, a beacon of cold, clinical emptiness. There was just enough milk remaining for 2 more mornings, maybe. A single, slightly bruised apple sat on the top shelf, looking lonely. Leftover cheese, stiff and cold, was all the substance she could muster. Emma sighed, the sound thin in the cold kitchen air, and extracted the cheese to scrape onto her single slice of toast. A moment later, Lily padded into the kitchen, rubbing her bright blue eyes, still dusted with sleep. "Good morning, Mommy." "Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well?" "I did. I dreamed about the snow." Emma smiled, a genuine warmth spreading across her face, and lifted her daughter, pulling her close to the familiar scent of baby shampoo and winter air. "Come have breakfast. It's cold, isn't it?" "It is." They settled at the tiny kitchen table. Lily munched her toast slowly, swinging her little legs under the seat. Since school was closed for the holiday break, Lily had to stay home. Emma had no one else to rely on, so on workdays, she took Lily to their next-door neighbor, Mrs. Rose, who watched her for a few dollars. A fee that always felt impossibly large. "Mommy, can we play in the snow again? We can take a quick walk around the block before I have to leave for work." "Yay." Emma carefully broke the last sliver of toast in half. Each of them ate exactly 50%. She finished her weak, watered-down coffee and let her eyes drift momentarily to the small stack of papers sitting on the adjacent counter. Bills, the electric notice, the gas statement, and the stark red lettering of the past due rent notice. She snapped her gaze away, determined not to let the cold dread paralyze her yet. She wasn't going to think about that now. After breakfast, Emma dressed Lily in the warmest ensemble they owned. A threadbare, slightly mended coat, a patchwork scarf, and wool gloves that were clearly several sizes too large. Emma pulled on her own old coat, the one whose lining was slowly disintegrating, and they stepped outside. The snow crunched satisfyingly under their worn boots. Lily instantly sprinted ahead, laughing, joyfully scooping up the fresh powder. "Look, Mommy, I made a ball." Emma offered a tired smile, though it barely reached her eyes. "That's lovely, sweetheart." They managed one full circuit around the city block. Lily played, jumped, and stamped bold footprints into the fresh snow cover. Emma simply watched, her hands shoved deep into her pockets, attempting to ignore the cold that was seeping relentlessly through the compromised seams of her coat. 20 minutes later, she glanced at the time. "Let's go, Lily. Mommy needs to drop you off at Mrs. Rose's and head to work." "Already? Already, my love." Lily pouted, her lower lip sticking out in a silent protest, but she obeyed without further argument. Emma dropped Lily off quickly, exchanged a few words with Mrs. Rose, and started the 4-block walk to the grocery store. It was a small, unassuming neighborhood store, the kind of local market where transactions were personal and everyone knew everyone else's name and business. She walked quickly through the snow, her breath condensing into small, frantic clouds in the freezing air. She hurried past the bakery, the familiar scent of yeast and sugar momentarily tempting her, the noisy laundromat, and the corner pharmacy. When she reached the store, Mr. Marcos, the manager, was already standing at the entrance, fiddling with the locks. "Morning, Emma." Punctual as always. "Morning, Mr. Marcos." She slipped inside the overheated, fluorescent-lit space, tied on her clean but worn apron, twisted her hair into a neat bun, and headed straight for the register. The small store had only 3 cramped aisles, stocked mostly with basic necessities, devoid of anything even remotely luxurious. It was the essential lifeline where the neighborhood residents did their daily, pragmatic shopping. The morning started slowly, a trickle of customers grabbing morning coffee, bread, and eggs. But as the day wore on toward New Year's Eve, the traffic swelled into a steady stream. Everyone seemed to be buying forgotten items or last-minute holiday treats. The line began to snake down the aisle. Emma started scanning the products rapidly. Asterisk beep, 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 asterisk. The repetitive, insistent sound was the soundtrack to her hours, her days, her life. "What's the total?" asked an impatient woman, shoving a packet of disposable plates toward the scanner. "That's too expensive," she scoffed. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I only ring up the products." The woman grumbled, counting out the crumpled bills reluctantly. Next customer and the next and the next. The hours crept by, slowly, painfully slowly. Mr. Marcos stalked past her register, his face pinched in a frown. "Emma, faster. The line is long." "I'm going as fast as I can, Mr. Marcos." "Then go even faster," he clipped, before disappearing down the dairy aisle. Emma took a deep, shaky breath and forced herself to continue the rhythm. Asterisk beep, 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 asterisk. Her feet were throbbing, the cheap inserts in her shoes offering no relief. Her lower back ached with persistent fatigue. She hadn't even paused to use the restroom. Suddenly, a crashing sound. A customer had dropped a large glass jar of tomato sauce. Shattered glass covered the floor, and a thick, dark red pool of sauce spread rapidly across the tile near her register. Emma had to stop everything. "This slows down the line, Emma," Mr. Marcos said, appearing instantly, his voice sharp with disapproval. "I'm sorry," she mumbled, already grabbing paper towels and the dustpan. She cleaned the sticky, humiliating mess as quickly as her trembling hands allowed, returned to her post, and resumed the relentless scanning. More customers, more products, more hours standing motionless, grinding away. An elderly woman, Mrs. Betty, took an eternity digging for the exact change in her oversized, cluttered purse. The man directly behind her huffed loudly, shifting his weight in irritation. Emma forced a gentle, reassuring smile toward the older woman, trying to diffuse the rising tension. "Take your time, Mrs. Betty. It's quite all right." The woman finally located the necessary coins and thanked her with a grateful smile. But the day never let up. It simply didn't stop. When her shift finally ended, It was already late afternoon, the weak winter light fading rapidly. Emma took off the confining apron, grabbed her worn purse, and exited through the service door at the back. It was snowing again, soft flakes drifting down from the gray sky. She walked back toward the apartment, hands buried in her pockets. Her body felt impossibly heavy. Her feet pleaded for release from the constant ache inside her old shoes, and her back screamed for rest. When she reached Mrs. Rose's house, Lily burst out the door and ran to her. "Mommy!" Emma automatically scooped up her daughter, despite the immediate strain in her arms. "Hello, my love. Did you miss me?" "I did. Can we go home now?" "We can." Emma handed Mrs. Rose the agreed-upon $5, and they trudged back to the small, cold apartment. Once home, Emma heated up a can of soup on the stove. It was the cheapest brand she could find, and one can usually lasted them 2 days. They ate in tired silence, perched on their chairs at the small table. After eating, Emma's gaze returned, inevitably, to the stack of bills. She picked up the electricity bill, 5 days past due. The gas bill, also past due. Then she picked up the rent notice, 3 agonizing days overdue. If she didn't make the payment by the end of the current week, eviction proceedings would begin. Emma felt the familiar icy wave of panic surge, threatening to drown her, but she inhaled deeply. She had to figure it out. She always did. She deliberately pushed the papers aside and moved to the sofa. Lily was already there, engrossed with a set of colored pencils and a pad of paper. "What are you drawing, sweetie?" "Me and Thomas." Emma leaned in to look at the drawing. 2 simplified stick figures of children were making snow angels. One figure had bright yellow hair, the other had brown. "It's beautiful. I like him, Mommy." "I know, my darling. He was nice to me, and his daddy was too." Emma felt a surprising tightness in her chest, a sudden, sharp ache. She remembered the man's kind eyes, the gentle, easy way he had smiled, the way he had looked at her without judgment. "Yes, they were very nice," she whispered. "Are we going to see them again?" Emma hesitated, running a tired hand through Lily's blonde hair. "I don't know, honey. I wish we could. But we don't know where they live, and they don't know where we live." Lily fell silent, concentrating on coloring Thomas's coat green. Emma wanted desperately to say yes. She wanted to tell Lily they would see them tomorrow. But she was paralyzed by fear, afraid to reach out, afraid to allow herself to get used to something good, only to have it ripped away again. She had trusted people before. She had lost before, and it had gone catastrophically wrong. She shook her head, forcing the destructive thoughts away. "Come on, let's play for a little bit before bedtime." Even exhausted, even with her feet screaming in protest, Emma sank onto the floor with her daughter. They played with the few toys they possessed. Old, chipped dolls, a few plastic cars, and a box of worn building blocks. Lily laughed, a joyous, unrestrained sound. Emma laughed too, a small, genuine chuckle. And for those few brief minutes, she forgot the bills, the grinding tiredness, the fear. It was just her and Lily together, safe. And that had to be enough. Later, after she had carefully tucked Lily into bed and kissed her forehead, Emma sat alone on the sofa. The apartment was eerily silent, cold and dark, illuminated only by the faint yellow glow of the small lamp. She looked again at the papers on the table, the rent, the electricity, the gas. Then she remembered the dinner from the night before, the full plate, the actual dessert, Lily eating until she was entirely satisfied, truly full. A single tear traced a hot path down Emma's cheek. That dinner hadn't just been food. It had been dignity. It had been a moment when she didn't have to feel small, when Lily didn't have to go hungry. Emma didn't know the man's full name. She didn't know how to find him. But she knew he had done something for her she would never forget. He had seen her. He had seen Lily. And he had cared. In a world where Emma felt utterly invisible every single day, that meant absolutely everything. She wiped her tears, took a final, deep, steadying breath and went to sleep. Tomorrow would inevitably be another day, another struggle, another battle. But for today she had done enough. She had worked. She had cared for her daughter. She had played. she had loved. And ultimately, that was all that ever truly mattered. The next morning, Emma woke with a strange, heavy weight settled in her chest. She couldn't explain the feeling, but something felt profoundly wrong. She got up, brewed her predictably weak coffee, and made the toast to share with Lily, following the established routine. But the leaden weight remained. After breakfast, she went to the door to check the mail. Junk flyers, a phone bill, and one stark white envelope. Emma recognized the sender immediately. It was from the real estate management company. She hurried back inside, closed the door, and ripped the envelope open with trembling hands. She scanned the first few lines of cold, administrative text. Asterisk final notice of overdue rent. Deadline for regularization. 5 days. If payment is not received, eviction proceedings will be immediately initiated. Emma's legs felt suddenly weak. She sank onto the nearest kitchen chair, the terrible letter still clutched in her hand. 5 days. Only 5 days left. She looked at Lily, who was happily playing on the living room rug, completely oblivious to her mother's silent panic. Emma struggled for air. She needed to think. She needed a solution. Her next paycheck wasn't due for another 10 days. Waiting was not an option. She needed the money now, and there was only one desperate option left. She had to ask the grocery store for a salary advance. Emma dropped Lily off at Mrs. Rose's house, offering a strained goodbye, and walked to work. This time, her demeanor was different, tenser, profoundly nervous. She tied on her apron, went to the register, and began her shift. But her mind was utterly disconnected, spinning wildly around the letter, the threat of eviction, and the terrifying prospect of where she and Lily would go. She had no family left, no close friends, nowhere to flee. It was just the two of them. If they lost the apartment, they would be on the street. At lunchtime, Emma forced herself to gather her courage. She wiped her sweaty palms repeatedly on her apron and headed toward the manager's office. She tapped tentatively on the door. "Come in." She opened the door slowly. Mr. Marcos was sitting behind his steel desk, staring intently at his computer screen. "Emma, what is it?" Emma stood in the doorway, her voice caught in the back of her throat. "Mr. Marcos, I wanted to talk to you about something." He looked up at her, waiting, his expression unreadable. Emma swallowed hard. "I'm having some financial difficulty, sir. I received an eviction notice today. I have 5 days to pay the overdue rent, and I wanted to know if an advance on my salary would be possible." The manager stopped typing instantly. He stared at her with that cold, assessing look she knew meant denial was coming. "Emma, you know that's not company policy." "I know, sir, but this is an emergency. I just need a portion of it. Half. Anything. I promise I will work double shifts. I won't miss a day." He raised a hand, a sharp, dismissive gesture that cut her off completely. "Emma, I understand your situation, truly, but I cannot do that. It is strictly not allowed. The company has rules, and I'm sorry. Cannot help you." Emma felt the hot sting of tears, but she held them fiercely back. She would not cry here. "Okay. Thank you anyway," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. She left the office, closed the door softly behind her, and leaned against the corridor wall, closing her eyes. She took 3 deep, ragged breaths. She wasn't going to collapse at work. She returned to the register, resuming the scanning, but she was completely hollowed out inside. When her shift ended, finally, Emma went to collect Lily. She paid Mrs. Rose the obligatory $5, and they began the slow, defeated walk home. Inside the apartment, she heated the canned soup again. Lily ate, chatting happily, describing her day with Mrs. Rose. Emma smiled, answered the questions, and pretended that everything was absolutely fine. But inside, she was in pieces. After dinner, Emma watched Lily playing on the floor and felt the devastating urge to curl up and weep. But she couldn't. Not in front of her daughter. "Lily, do you want to take a walk? Get some fresh air?" "I do." They dressed and went out. The cold air struck Emma's face. A brief, shocking tonic. She needed to clear her mind. She needed to think beyond the 5-day deadline. They walked around the block aimlessly. Lily jumped in every snow puddle she found, completely oblivious to the catastrophe hanging over them. And it was just as they turned the corner that they saw them. Andrew and Thomas. They were coming out of a local hardware store. Thomas walking slightly ahead, holding a colorful package, holding a grocery bag. The children saw each other instantly. Lily, Thomas. They shrieked with joyful recognition, abandoning their small belongings and barreling toward each other in a frantic, laughter-filled embrace. Andrew walked over, a genuine, easy smile warming his face. "Hi, Emma. This is a surprise. What a brilliant coincidence." Emma tried to return the smile, but the gesture was brittle. The light in her usual expressive blue eyes was dim, failing to reach the surface. "Hi." Andrew noticed the immediate change. She was different. More withdrawn, shoulders hunched defensively, her gaze distant and worried. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his tone dropping to concern. She jerked a small, too vigorous nod. "Everything? Yes, everything is fine." Her denial sounded hollow, landing awkwardly in the crisp afternoon air. Andrew studied her closely. He saw the faint puffiness beneath her eyes, the stark paleness of her skin, and the almost imperceptible tremor in her hands. "You look exhausted," he pressed gently. "Are you certain?" "I am," she insisted. "I'm just utterly exhausted from work." She quickly turned her face away, nervously fiddling with the fabric of her thin coat. That movement exposed it. A corner of white paper, severely creased, peeking from her deep pocket. Though she instantly covered it, Andrew's sharp eyes caught the devastating flash of dark, capitalized lettering. "Final notice." His easy composure vanished, replaced by a sudden, icy knot of worry in his gut. "Emma, Lily, let's go." Emma cut in abruptly, grabbing her daughter's hand quickly, almost painfully. "We need to go home now." Lily pouted, confusion clouding her face. "But I was playing with Thomas. We'll come back another time. We must go." Thomas looked up at his father, puzzled by the abrupt change. Andrew looked at Emma, wanting desperately to say something reassuring, something meaningful, but the words failed him. "Emma, if you need anything at all, everything is fine," she repeated, her voice tight with forced control. She pulled Lily along and walked away quickly, her pace bordering on a desperate run. Andrew stood there, Thomas beside him, watching Emma and Lily disappear around the corner. He knew, with an awful certainty, that everything was not fine. He knew she was lying, and he knew that whatever was wrong was very, very serious. Emma arrived at her small apartment, slammed the door shut, locked the deadbolt, and finally let the tears fall, a torrent she could no longer suppress. She sank onto the living room floor, the crumpled letter still pressing painfully against her side in her coat pocket, and cried silently until her body shook, while Lily slept peacefully unaware in the tiny bedroom. 5 days. Only 5 days left, and she had no solution, no desperate plan, and nowhere left to run. She had no one to turn to. Andrew arrived home with Thomas, and the memory of Emma's hollow eyes and trembling hands refused to leave him. He kept picturing that crumpled letter. He picked up his phone, stared at her number, and considered calling, but hesitated. Not yet. But he knew, with growing conviction, that he would need to intervene, because something was profoundly, agonizingly wrong, and he wasn't going to simply ignore it. Andrew couldn't shake the nagging worry about Emma. It had been 2 days since their fleeting encounter on the street. 2 days since he had seen that damning crumpled letter in her pocket. 2 days of agonizing internally, trying to decide whether or not he had the right to do anything. He was sitting on the sofa, scrolling aimlessly through his phone contacts, lingering on her number. He wanted to call, but paranoia held him back. He didn't want to seem invasive, nor did he want her to think he was prying into her private affairs. Yet he also couldn't just stand by and let her suffer alone. Thomas walked into the room, dragging his beloved worn teddy bear behind him. "Daddy, when are we going to see Lily again?" Andrew looked at his son, seeing the genuine longing in his face. "I don't know, champ, but I have her mom's phone number. remember? I do. So call her. Andrew smiled, charmed by the unburdened simplicity and directness of children. Do you miss her that much? Thomas nodded hard, his expression serious. I do. She's my best friend. Andrew felt a sharp, unexpected pang in his chest. His son had found a true friend, and he had found. What? He couldn't quite define the unfamiliar stirrings yet. A mixture of worry and sharp, unexpected attraction. But he knew Emma had broken through the protective shell he'd built around his life. He looked at his phone again, and this time he made the decision. He called. Emma was washing the dinner dishes when the phone rang, startling her. She hastily dried her hands on the tea towel and looked at the screen. Unknown number. She hesitated, her pulse quickening, but answered anyway. Hello? Emma. It's Andrew. Her heart leaped in her chest. Andrew. Hi. Sorry to call out of the blue like this. I hope it's not an inconvenient time. No, it's fine. Silence stretched for a few tense seconds. Emma waited, her grip tightening on the receiver. Look. I know we barely know each other, but Thomas won't stop talking about Lily, and I was wondering if you two would like to spend New Year's Eve here at my place. We could watch the fireworks from the balcony. Nothing too elaborate. Just a simple dinner and the fireworks display. Emma was speechless, a whirlwind of confusion and longing hitting her. You don't have to answer right now. Music. You can think about it, but it would be really nice for Thomas and I imagine for Lily too. Emma felt a dizzying mix of emotions. A desperate desire to accept the warmth being offered, overwhelming shame about her current situation, fear of getting too close to someone stable, and the paralyzing dread of getting used to something good that could be ripped away. Andrew, I don't know if... Mommy, who is it? Lily appeared in the doorway, suddenly curious, drawn by her mother's strange tone. Emma quickly covered the phone's mouthpiece. It's Thomas's dad, sweetie. Lily's eyes widened instantly, glowing with excitement. Thomas? Emma returned to the call, sighing softly. Andrew, let me think about it and I'll text you back with my answer. Okay, of course. No pressure at all. They hung up. Music. Emma looked at her daughter, whose face was alight with that expectant, hopeful look. What did he want, Mommy? Emma sighed again. He invited us to spend New Year's Eve at their house to watch the fireworks. Lily jumped up and down, practically vibrating with happiness. Are we going? Please, Mommy. Please. Music. Lily. I want to see Thomas and watch the fireworks. Please. Emma looked into her daughter's clear blue eyes so full of uncomplicated hope, so full of infectious joy. How could she possibly deny her this small pleasure? And if she was truly honest with herself, she desperately wanted to go, too. She wanted to see Andrew again. She wanted to feel that fleeting, precious feeling of not being completely alone, even if it was just for one night. All right, sweetie. We're going. Lily screamed with happiness and hugged her mother tightly, burying her face in Emma's blouse. Emma picked up her phone and sent a short, decisive message. We accept. Thank you for the kind invitation. The reply came back quickly, instantly lifting her mood. Great. I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. Send me your address. Emma hesitated for a long moment, feeling the familiar prickle of vulnerability, but she sent it. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, she smiled a genuine, relieved smile. On December 31st, Andrew woke up early, driven by nervous excitement, and started meticulously tidying the house. He vacuumed the plush carpets, polished the kitchen counters until they gleamed, and straightened the comfortable living room. His house wasn't ostentatious. It was merely a spacious, welcoming family home. But he wanted Emma and Lily to feel instantly comfortable and valued. Thomas helped in the way a 5-year-old helps, mostly getting in the way and distracting Andrew, but he didn't mind the chaos. Music. Daddy, will Lily like it here? I think so, son. And are we going to watch the fireworks together? We are. Thomas beamed, satisfied. Andrew went to the kitchen and started preparing dinner. Nothing overly complicated. Roast chicken, roasted potatoes, and a simple salad, something modest. Music, but made with care and attention. He wanted the night to feel special, warm, and memorable, but without any hint of exaggeration or wealth that might make Emma uncomfortable. Emma, on the other side of the city, was a wreck of nerves. She opened the narrow closet and gazed at the few clothes she owned. Music, nothing very nice, nothing very new, certainly nothing glamorous enough for New Year's Eve. She selected the most presentable top she had, a simple faded blue blouse, and a pair of jeans that were still in decent condition. Music. Lily was in the bedroom, humming a cheerful tune, utterly oblivious to her mother's anxiety. Emma got ready in front of the small bathroom mirror. She painstakingly combed her blonde hair, trying to coax volume into it, and applied a tiny bit of lipstick she had saved for special occasions. It wasn't much, but it was the best she could do. Lily appeared in the doorway, already dressed in her favorite pink dress. "Mommy, you music. Look pretty." Emma smiled, her heart aching with love and worry. "Thank you, sweetie. And you do too." They waited in the living room. Music. Emma was intensely anxious, her hands sweating, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if he saw how small and bare their apartment was and felt pity for them? What if he immediately realized the severity of their situation? What if this was all a mistake? The doorbell. Music rang, startling her. Emma took a deep, steadying breath and opened the door. Andrew was there, Thomas standing patiently beside him. Music. Andrew was wearing simple, comfortable clothes, jeans and a casual shirt. Nothing overdone. Hi. We're ready." Thomas and Lily had already fallen into a tight hug and were chattering excitedly. Andrew quickly glanced at the apartment behind Emma. He saw the cramped space, the old, clicking heater, the simple, worn furniture, but he said nothing. He offered no judgment, only a warm, genuine smile. "Music. Shall we go?" Emma grabbed her purse and quickly locked the door, and they descended the stairs. Andrew's house was located in a quiet, established area of the city. It wasn't a sprawling mansion. It was a well-maintained, comfortable two-story house. Nice but without any ostentation. When they walked in, Emma took a moment to look around. There was a spacious living room, a deeply comfortable-looking sofa, a fireplace casting a warm glow, and a Christmas tree still decorated in the corner. Everything was clean, organized, but possessed that lived-in, settled air of a true home. "Make yourselves at home," Andrew. Music said easily. Thomas tugged enthusiastically on Lily's hand. "Come on, I'll show you my room." The children ran off up the stairs, their laughter echoing cheerfully. Emma stood awkwardly in the living room, unsure what she should do next. "Do you want to sit down?" Andrew offered gently. "Thank you." She sat down on the sofa, sinking into the soft cushions. Andrew went toward the kitchen. "Do you want something to drink? Water? Juice?" "Water is fine." He returned with 2 glasses of water and sat next to her, maintaining a respectful distance between them. "The house is beautiful," Emma said softly, sincerely. "Thank you. It was my wife's. She decorated everything. I kind of just kept it the way she left it." Emma looked at him, feeling a wave of sympathy. "That must be hard." Andrew shrugged slightly. "Sometimes it is. Music. But it's also comforting, like she's still here in some way." Emma nodded. Music, understanding the complexity of grief. Children's laughter drifted down from upstairs. They both smiled. "They really get along," Emma commented, a lightness entering her voice. "Too well. I haven't seen Thomas this happy in a long time." Music. Lily too. She won't stop talking about him. They fell into a moment of silence that felt surprisingly comfortable. "Dinner is almost ready," Andrew said, standing up. "Do you want to help me finish up? Or would you prefer to rest?" "I'll help." They went to the large kitchen together. Music. Andrew took the perfectly roasted chicken out of the oven. Emma helped put the salad into the serving dishes. They worked side by side, falling into an easy, surprising sync as if they had been doing this for years. "You're a good cook," Emma commented. "I had to learn. After Sarah died, it was just Thomas and me. So either I learned quickly or we'd live solely on takeout." Music. Emma smiled faintly, a genuine warmth reaching her eyes this time. I understand that completely. I had to learn everything by myself, too. Andrew looked at her, his curiosity tempered with caution. How long has it just been you and Lily? Music. Emma hesitated for a moment, tracing the rim of the serving dish. Since forever, really. Since she was born. Her father. He's not a part of her life or mine. Andrew realized instantly that she did not want to discuss it. Music? So he didn't press for details. It must be incredibly hard doing everything alone. Emma nodded, her voice cracking slightly with raw emotion. It is very hard. Some days I don't know how I'm still standing, honestly, but I do it for her. Everything for her. Andrew looked at Emma with deep respect, a genuine admiration shining in his eyes. You are very strong. Emma felt the hot sting of tears behind her eyelids, but held them back fiercely. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You could have given up. You could have done less, but you didn't. You fight fiercely every single day. And that's incredible. Emma looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt like someone truly saw her, not with pity or judgment, but with profound respect. Thank you, she whispered. They called the children down for dinner. Thomas and Lily ran down, sat eagerly at the table, and ate excitedly, talking about everything and nothing. Andrew served Emma a generous portion. She ate slowly, deliberately savoring every bite. It had been a long time since she had eaten something so wholesome, so comforting. Homemade, warm, and clearly made with thoughtful care. After dinner, they retreated to the living room. The children played happily on the floor, inventing elaborate games. Andrew and Emma sat on the sofa, talking softly, the quiet hum of the house surrounding them. Have you thought about what your plans are for the new year? Andrew asked. Emma gave a sad, self-deprecating smile. Survive. That's always the plan, I suppose. Music. Andrew wanted to ask more. He wanted to understand the depth of the trouble she was in, but he knew this wasn't the right time to push. If you ever need anything at all, you can talk to me, he said, his voice earnest and sincere. Seriously. Music. Emma looked at him, her eyes searching his face. Why? Why do you want to help us? Andrew paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I see you, and I see Lily, and I see how special you both are, and I simply like being around you. It makes me feel significantly less lonely than I have in years. Emma felt her chest tighten painfully with recognition. I also feel less alone when I'm around you. They looked at each other, and something shifted between them. Something profound, something real and magnetic. A few minutes before midnight, Andrew called everyone to the balcony. They went out. The air was cold, but the sky was crystal clear, dark and music, full of distant stars. The city below was illuminated, waiting in breathless anticipation for the new year. Thomas and Lily stood eagerly in front, leaning on the railing, vibrating with excitement. Andrew and Emma stood behind them, side by side, their arms not quite touching. The countdown began, a distant, muffled roar rising from the city streets. Emma looked out at the fireworks display about to explode over the skyline. Andrew looked intently at Emma, no longer watching the approaching spectacle. Emma felt his gaze and slowly turned her head. Their eyes met. The fireworks exploded in the sky with deafening noise. Red, gold, and silver lights illuminated everything around them. The children screamed with pure, unadulterated joy. But Andrew and Emma didn't look away from each other. Music. They stood there, motionless, simply looking while the world around them celebrated. And Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The possibility that life could, perhaps, be different. Music. That she didn't necessarily have to be alone all the time. That maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good and stable. Andrew gave her a small, gentle smile. Music. Emma smiled back, a hesitant, hopeful light returning to her eyes. And in that moment, without words, without any binding promises, music, both knew something fundamental was beginning. Something real. Something neither of them had expected, but which both of them, suddenly and fiercely, wanted. Later, when Andrew drove Emma and Lily back home, Music? Emma lingered in the car seat for a few seconds before getting out. Thank you for the evening. Music, it was truly special for me, too. Lily had already scampered ahead toward the door. Emma looked at Andrew one more time, memorizing his face in the soft light of the car dashboard. Music. Happy New Year, Andrew. Happy New Year, Emma. She got out of the car and went inside. And when she lay in bed that night, Emma felt a distinct difference in her chest. Hope, possibility, and for the first time in a very long time, music. She fell asleep smiling. It had been 3 weeks since New Year's Eve. Music. Andrew and Emma had managed to see each other a few times. Casual outings with the children, quick coffees near her work, meaningful conversations in the park while Thomas and Lily played companionably. With each meeting, they grew closer, more comfortable, more deeply connected. That Saturday afternoon, Andrew took Thomas to Emma's apartment. The children wanted desperately to play together. Music, and Emma had reluctantly agreed to host them. It was Andrew's first time entering her apartment to stay. He looked around discreetly, noting the space, small but cold. Music utterly simple, but meticulously clean and organized, with Lily's bright crayon drawings carefully taped to the refrigerator. Sorry about the mess, Emma said, her nervousness evident in her tight shoulders. There's no mess at all. It's lovely. The children immediately ran off to Lily's room, disappearing into excited chatter. Andrew and Emma remained in the living room. Do you want some coffee? She offered. I do. Emma made the coffee, served it in 2 simple, mismatched mugs, and they sat down on the small, slightly threadbare sofa. They talked about random, surface-level things. Music, about her job, about his company, about the children's latest antics. But there was a palpable tension in the air, a different kind of intensity, as if both of them knew they needed to talk about something far deeper and more difficult. Andrew looked at her, his expression serious, his eyes holding hers. Emma, can I ask you something personal? She nodded, nervous dread settling in her stomach. Why are you alone? I mean, you're incredible. You're beautiful, smart, hardworking, an amazing mother. Why isn't there someone important in your life? Emma was silent for a long, painful time. She looked down at the coffee mug clutched in her hands. Then she took a deep, steadying breath, preparing to expose a wound she kept carefully hidden. Because I'm terrified. Afraid of what? Of repeating the mistakes of the past. Lily's father. He wasn't a good person. Did he hurt you? Emma shook her head quickly. Not physically. He never laid a hand on me, thank God. But he hurt me in other ways. Ways that leave scars nobody sees. Invisible, deep ones. Andrew felt his chest tighten in sympathy and quiet anger. How so? Emma put the mug down on the small side table and instinctively hugged her knees, physically closing herself off. When I met him, I was young, naive. I thought he was perfect, attentive, protective. But over time, I realized that protection music was actually control. Deep, isolating control. He decided what I wore, who I spoke to, where I went. He constantly chipped away at everything I did. He told me I was stupid, that I couldn't do anything right on my own, that I desperately needed him to survive. Andrew felt the anger rise in him, hot and sharp, but he stayed quiet, allowing her the space to speak her truth. I started believing it, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. I started thinking he was right, that I was incapable, that I was small. And then I got pregnant. Emma stopped, her voice breaking entirely. When I told him, I thought he'd be happy, but he wasn't. He got worse, more controlling, more jealous, more suffocating. Clear's throat. He wanted total dominion over the pregnancy, over the baby, over me. And I realized that if I stayed with him, my daughter would grow up in that corrosive atmosphere. She would grow up seeing her mother being diminished, controlled, manipulated, and I simply couldn't let that happen. So you left. Emma nodded, the tears finally escaping and running tracks down her face. I ran away. I took the little money I had and ran. I moved to another city, came to Denver. I started over from scratch with nothing, with no one, just me and Lily. And since then, I have never wanted to depend on anyone again. I never wanted to give anyone the power to decide my life or my worth. Andrew remained silent, processing the agonizing reality of her trauma. You did the right thing, he affirmed gently. I know, but it was hard. Very hard. And it left me with scars. It left me afraid. Afraid of what, precisely? Emma looked at him, her eyes full of lingering pain and fear. Afraid of repeating it. Afraid of getting involved with someone new, and then little by little, slowly losing my independence and freedom again. Afraid of being controlled again. Andrew shook his head instantly. Emma, I would never do that to you. I know that you don't want to. But... She stopped, her voice trembling now with renewed panic. But what? Emma looked at him directly. She saw the man in front of her. Rich, powerful, influential, the owner of a successful company. A man accustomed to making major decisions and being firmly in control. And she felt the fear tighten like a cold vice in her chest. You have money, Andrew. A lot of money. You have power. You're used to solving things, to making all the decisions. And I'm terrified that one day you'll start making decisions for me, too. Andrew's eyes widened in shock, hurt visible on his face. Emma, I would never. I know you don't mean to, but it's stronger than me. There's a paralyzing fear that's right here inside me. She placed a trembling hand flat on her chest. And I can't control it. Every single time you offer help, every time you pay for something, every time you easily solve a problem for me, a part of me is profoundly grateful. But another part instantly panics because that's exactly how it started with him, with small things, with him helping. And then, little by little, he took over everything, my whole life. Andrew was rendered speechless. Emma, I just want to help you. I don't want to control you. I know you don't. But the fear isn't rational. It's purely emotional. It's a wound that hasn't healed properly. She got up from the sofa, agitated, starting to pace back and forth in the tiny room. I like you, Andrew. I like you a lot, more than I'm comfortable admitting, but I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can open up. I don't know if I can trust, because every time I look at you, I see everything you have, everything you are, and I feel small again. I feel like I'm losing control of my own life, and that terrifies me. Andrew got up slowly, trying to approach her, trying to bridge the gap she had opened between them. Emma, I understand. I truly understand what you went through, but I'm not him. I never will be. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face unchecked now. I know you're not, but the fear doesn't know that. She backed away further, hugging herself tightly. I think we need some time apart. Andrew felt the ground disappear beneath his feet, a sickening lurch of despair. What? I need some time. I need to think. I need to understand what I'm truly feeling because right now everything is confusing and terrifying, and I don't want to hurt you, and I certainly don't want to hurt myself again. Emma, please. Andrew, I need this space. Andrew stood there, completely adrift, not knowing what to do or what to say. He wanted desperately to argue, to tell her she was completely wrong, that he would never hurt her, that she could trust him with her life. But he saw the stark terror in her eyes. He saw the genuine, crippling pain. He saw the utter vulnerability of her confession. And he understood, sickeningly, that she needed space to breathe and heal. All right, he said, his voice low and defeated. If that's what you truly need, then all right. Emma let out a ragged sob, covering her face with her hands, utterly broken. Andrew took a half-step toward her, wanting desperately to hug her, to comfort her and promise to protect her. But he stopped himself, knowing he couldn't violate the boundary she had just established. I'll go get Thomas. We're leaving now. He went to the small bedroom, called his son, and Thomas came out complaining loudly, not understanding why they had to leave so suddenly. They had to leave far too early. The raw agony of the moment felt disproportionate to the casual nature of their departure. Andrew paused at the threshold, turning for one last, searing look at Emma. She hadn't moved. She was leaning heavily against the door frame, shoulders slumped, tears streaming silently down her face. A sharp pain twisted in his chest. I'm not giving up on you, he whispered, his voice thick with unspent emotion, but I will give you the time you need. With a final nod, he took Thomas's small, trusting hand and walked away, the sound of their footsteps receding down the hall. The second the door clicked shut, the carefully constructed wall of Emma's composure shattered. She slid down the unforgiving wood, collapsing onto the floor in wrenching sobs. Lily, woken by the sudden, unfamiliar sound of profound distress, crept cautiously out of the bedroom, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Emma furiously scrubbed the tears from her cheeks, attempting to plaster a smile onto her trembling face. "It's nothing, sweetie. Mommy is fine." But she was a terrible liar, especially to herself. She wasn't fine. She had just deliberately pushed away the only person who, in years of grinding solitude, had offered her a tangible, reliable sense of hope. Now, the old familiar chill had returned, and fear was not just winning. It was reigning supreme. 2 weeks. 2 agonizing weeks had passed since Emma had uttered those painful, necessary words, asking for time apart. 2 weeks without Andrew, feeling the profound silence where his quiet, steady presence used to echo. And 2 weeks of Lily asking the same heartbreaking question every day. When will I see Thomas again? Emma tried every explanation, that they were busy, that they would connect soon, but the excuses felt hollow. Lily missed her friend fiercely, and Emma, no matter how desperately she tried to convince herself otherwise, missed Andrew with a dull, persistent ache in her soul. That Saturday afternoon, the stifling silence in their apartment became unbearable. Emma decided to take Lily to the neighborhood park. Maybe the fresh, cool air would clear the fog in her mind. Maybe the activity would distract them both from their mutual yearning. They walked the few short blocks. Lily, fueled by the prospect of freedom, darted ahead, a blur of excited energy. Emma followed at a deliberate pace, her hands shoved deep into the pockets of her worn coat, her gaze fixed on the pavement. The park was buzzing with the late afternoon crowd, a lively, reassuring cacophony of children shrieking and parents chatting companionably. The late autumn sun was already sinking low, casting long shadows and painting the western sky in dramatic strokes of blazing orange and softened rose pink. Lily made a beeline for the swing set. Emma began the monotonous task of pushing her, the rhythmic squeak of the chains a soundtrack to her daughter's pure, unadulterated laughter. And then, she heard it. A voice familiar enough to stop her heart mid-beat. "Lily!" Emma's head snapped up. Running across the worn grass toward them was Thomas, his small legs pumping, and trailing slightly behind him, Andrew. Their eyes met across the playground, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Emma felt a wild, panicked flutter in her chest, her heart suddenly slamming against her ribs. Thomas reached the swing set, utterly breathless. "Lily, I missed you." Lily scrambled off the swing without warning and launched herself into a fierce embrace with her friend. "I missed you, too." The 2 children immediately ran off together toward the slide, laughing as if 2 days hadn't passed, let alone 2 empty weeks. Emma and Andrew stood frozen, separated by a thin strip of wood chips, watching their children play. The silence that stretched between the adults was thick, heavy, and intensely uncomfortable, vibrating with everything left unsaid. Andrew was the first to move, taking a tentative step toward her. Hi. More silence, charged with electricity. "How are you?" he finally managed to ask, his voice carefully neutral. "I'm good. And you?" "Good too." They were polite lies, spoken purely out of habit, and both of them knew it instantly. Andrew shifted, burying his hands deep into his coat pockets. "Thomas missed Lily a lot." "Lily, too," Emma confirmed, a painful honesty finally slipping through. She asked every day. "Yeah." They fell silent again, their focus shifting to the children now maneuvering through the bright primary colors of the slide structure. Emma took a deep, steadying breath, preparing herself for the necessary plunge. "Andrew, I need to say something." He looked at her immediately, his expression open and expectant. Emma nervously twisted the fabric of her coat in her hands. "I know I asked for time apart, and I know I pushed you away, and I need to explain better why." "You don't need to explain anything," he interrupted gently. Yes, I do, she insisted, her voice gaining strength. Because you don't deserve to be treated like that. You didn't do anything wrong. The problem was never you. It was me. Andrew took another, closer step, his shadow nearly touching hers. Emma, please, let me talk. He nodded, granting her the floor. Emma dropped her gaze to her own feet, summoning the courage to speak her deepest, most guarded truth. When I pushed you away, it wasn't because I don't like you. It was the opposite. It was because I like you too much. And that terrified me. She explained the pattern of her past. Every time she had allowed herself to feel vulnerable, to like someone, the resulting relationship had ended badly. Catastrophically, in fact. She finally lifted her eyes to meet his, the fear visible in their blue depths. What I went through with Lily's father. It left me scarred. It left me with deep wounds I didn't even know were still there. When I started getting close to you, those scars started to burn again. I started feeling that familiar, sickening fear. Afraid of losing control, afraid of being minimized again, afraid of repeating that whole devastating cycle. But I would never do that to you, he asserted instantly, his expression earnest. I know you wouldn't, she cried out, frustrated by the lack of control over her own body. But the fear isn't rational. It's a body reaction. It's the trauma talking. Every single time you offered help, every time you effortlessly solved some small problem for me, a part of me was immensely grateful but another part panicked. She shivered slightly, pulling the coat tighter. Because that's how it started with him. With small things, with him helping, and then little by little, he took over everything. He took over my whole life. A single, hot tear finally escaped and tracked down her cheek. She cleared her throat, trying to regain her equilibrium. And I know you're not him. I know it with my mind. But my body doesn't know it yet. My heart doesn't know it. And when I realized how much I was starting to truly like you, how much I was starting to rely on your steady presence, I panicked. And I ran. Just like I always run. Andrew stood perfectly silent, absorbing every raw word. Emma quickly wiped her face. The problem was never you, Andrew. It was always me. My past, my fear, my trauma. And I am so sorry I hurt you. Because you didn't deserve that consequence. Andrew took one final step, closing the distance between them until he was standing intimately close. Emma, I understand. I understand everything you went through. I understand the fear, and I will never, ever judge you for it. He looked intensely into her eyes, his expression utterly serious, radiating sincerity. But I need you to understand one thing clearly. I will never control you. Never. I don't want to run your life. I don't want to decide for you. I don't want to diminish you. I want to walk with you by your side as a partner, as an equal. Emma sobbed, the force of his acceptance breaking her resistance. But you have so much more than me. You have money, you have power, you have influence, and I have nothing. You have everything that matters, he corrected, his voice firm. You have courage, you have strength, you have a huge heart, and you have Lily. And that's worth infinitely more than any amount of money in the world. He gently placed his hand on her cheek, his thumb brushing away a fresh tear. Emma, I don't want to save you. I don't want to be your hero. I just want to be by your side, walking together. I want to support you when you need it, yes. But always respecting your choices, always respecting your autonomy, always respecting you. Emma closed her eyes, letting the tears fall freely onto his hand. I'm so afraid, Andrew. I know, he murmured. But I'll be patient. I'll give you the time you need. I'll give you the space you need. And I will be here when you are ready. Emma opened her eyes and looked at him, and for the first time, she felt a seismic shift in her own heart. The overwhelming sensation wasn't fear. It was safety, absolute and solid. I feel safe with you, she managed to say, her voice still trembling. Andrew smiled, a deep, relieved warmth shining in his eyes. You are safe. You always will be. Emma took a small, decisive step toward him and rested her head tentatively against his chest. Andrew wrapped his arms around her, carefully, respectfully, without any trace of possessiveness or pressure. They stood there embraced, the joyful sounds of the children playing in the background serving as a gentle counterpoint to their profound moment. And Emma felt, for the first time in an immeasurable length of time, that maybe she could trust again. Maybe she could open up again. Maybe she could love again without the crippling fear of losing herself entirely in the process. When they finally drew apart, Emma wiped her tears and offered him a tentative, genuine smile. "Sorry I pushed you away. You don't need to apologize for protecting yourself, Emma. You did what you had to do. But now I want to try. Really slowly, calmly, with boundaries, but I want to try." Andrew smiled back, the relief radiating from him palpable. "That is all I could ever ask for." Just then, Thomas and Lily raced back to them, their cheeks flushed with excitement. "Daddy, can we go get ice cream now?" Andrew looked at Emma, seeking permission with his eyes. She laughed and nodded. "Let's go." The four of them left the park together. The children bounded ahead, their small hands intertwined, already plotting their route. Andrew and Emma walked side by side, their pace measured and in sync. And this time, Emma didn't feel the suffocating weight of fear. She felt peace. She felt hope. She felt that perhaps, finally, things could work out. It was late afternoon 2 days later when Andrew rang the doorbell of Emma's small, worn apartment. She opened the door, a light, genuine smile already on her face. Andrew stood there with Thomas, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "Is Lily home?" the boy demanded eagerly. "She is. Come in." Thomas bolted past her before she could even finish the sentence. Lily emerged from the bedroom, and the two children collided in a hug, as if they hadn't seen each other in months, despite their ice cream outing just 2 days prior. "Come on, Thomas. Let's build a fort. Let's go. I brought my teddy bear." They raced toward the bedroom, leaving behind a wake of joyous laughter and pure, unfiltered energy. Emma and Andrew were left standing in the living room, sharing an amused smile at the chaos. "They are inseparable," Emma commented, shaking her head affectionately. "They really are," Andrew agreed, leaning against the doorframe. "Thomas talks about her morning, noon, and night. It's only Lily, Lily, Lily." Emma laughed, a clear, lovely sound. "Lily too. She draws the two of them on every piece of paper she finds." Andrew glanced around the apartment. It was small, a little cluttered, but fiercely cozy, a testament to her effort. Felt like a true home. Emma noticed his appreciative gaze and felt a slight wave of shyness. "Do you want to come in? Have some tea? Or, I don't know, stay for a bit?" Andrew smiled, that calm, steady smile that never failed to reassure her. "I do." She retreated to the tiny kitchen, setting a kettle on to boil. Andrew followed, resting his forearms on the door frame, watching her retrieve the mismatched mugs. "Can I help?" "You don't need to," she said, already feeling a familiar ease in his presence. "It's just tea. Nothing too elaborate. I like tea." Emma smiled as she prepared the 2 mugs, dropping in the tea bags and waiting patiently for the water to reach temperature. When it was ready, they returned to the living room and sat on the sofa side by side, maintaining a conscious, respectful distance between them. The children's muffled laughter and the sound of furniture being dragged across the floor filtered in from the bedroom. "They invent the wildest things," Emma said, laughing lightly. "Yesterday, Lily said they were explorers on a frozen planet looking for magic crystals. Thomas said they were superheroes saving lost dogs and taking them to a safe place." They shared a genuine, easy laugh, a light, peaceful sound. The silence that followed was comfortable, not tense. It was the kind of peace that settles naturally between two people who feel genuinely good in each other's proximity. Andrew looked down at the mug in his hands, thoughtful. Emma noticed a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. He wanted to say something important. "What is it?" she asked gently, encouraging him. "Emma, can I tell you something?" She looked at him, curious, but also suddenly nervous again. "So of course, go ahead." He took a deep breath, like someone preparing to dive into cold water. "I love being with you very much. And it's not just because of the children. It's not just because Thomas and Lily get along so well, though that's wonderful. It's because of you, because of who you are, because of how you make me feel." Emma felt a frantic flutter beneath her ribs. She carefully set her mug down on the small coffee table, kneading both hands steady. "How do I make you feel?" Andrew turned to her completely, his gaze locked directly on hers, full of a depth she hadn't seen before. "Alive. For the first time in 2 years, I feel completely alive again. I wake up, and I think about you. I spend the whole day wanting to see you, wanting to hear your voice, wanting to know every detail of your day. And when I'm with you, I feel whole, like a part of me that was missing has finally returned home." Emma felt a hot sting behind her eyes, and she blinked rapidly to hold back the tears. "I'm not pressuring you," Andrew continued softly. "I just needed you to know that what I feel for you is real, strong, and it isn't going away no matter how much time passes." Emma placed her hands on the table and interlaced her fingers tightly, looking down at the nervous movement. "I feel that too." Andrew turned to her fully, surprised, his own heart starting to pound. "You do?" Emma nodded, her voice low but steady, infused with a new firmness. "I feel something very strong for you, something that scares me and calms me at the very same time. It's strange. I'm afraid, yes. I'm afraid of getting hurt. I'm afraid of losing control of my life again. But when I'm by your side, I feel good. I feel safe. I feel seen, like I matter. And it's been so long since I felt that way." She finally met his gaze, her eyes shining with contained tears. "I didn't think I could feel this again. After everything I went through, after everything I carried alone, I thought I had completely lost the capacity to trust, to open up, to love. But you showed me that I still can, that I still do, that I still deserve it." Andrew took her hand, interlacing his fingers with hers gently, securely. "You can and you deserve it, Emma. You deserve everything good that life has to offer. And I'll be here, at your time, at your pace. No rush, no pressure, just walking by your side." Emma squeezed his hand back, anchoring herself to the warmth and safety it provided. "Thank you for being so patient with me, for understanding my panic attacks, for not giving up when I pushed you away, for still being here. I will never give up on you. Never." They stayed there, simply holding hands, looking at each other. They didn't need to speak the words, "I love you." Yet, they were too fresh, too profound for casual declaration. But the feeling was undeniably there, clear, strong, real, pulsing visibly between them. Emma placed her other hand over his, holding his hand with both of hers as if it were something infinitely precious. "I want to try," she repeated, a conviction ringing in her voice. "Truly. I want to see where this goes. I want to build something with you." Andrew smiled, relieved, joyous. "Me too, Emma. More than anything." At that exact, perfect moment, the children burst out of the room, shouting excitedly, "Mommy! Daddy! Come see the fort we made. It's giant." Emma and Andrew looked at each other and laughed. The profound, intimate moment interrupted in the most perfectly timed way possible. "Let's go," Emma said, standing up. They followed the children into the bedroom. Inside, an elaborate, improvised fort rose up, constructed of sheets draped over chairs, pillows stacked high, and even a broom strategically placed to hold up the ceiling. Thomas and Lily were inside, bursting with pride over their creation. "It's our castle," Lily announced dramatically. "And you're the special guests," Thomas completed, theatrically pulling back a sheet entrance. Andrew and Emma bent down and awkwardly maneuvered themselves into the fort. They were crowded inside, the four of them squeezed together, laughing at the small space and the children's ingenuity. Thomas pointed at Emma with the utmost seriousness. "You're the queen of the castle." Lily, equally excited, pointed at Andrew. "And you're the king." Andrew looked across the cramped space at Emma. She looked back, and the two of them smiled, a shared, silent understanding passing between them. King and queen. Family. Maybe the children were right. Maybe they were already a family. They just needed the courage to accept it. 3 months later, winter was a receding memory. The last of the snow had melted, and the first vibrant, hesitant signs of spring were beginning to appear on the barren trees outside Emma's window. Emma looked around the empty apartment. Cardboard boxes, packed and sealed, were stacked neatly near the door. Lily raced back and forth, humming a bright, excited tune. "Mommy, we're going to live at Thomas's house. I'm going to have my own room." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with a turbulent mix of happiness, relief, and fragile hope. "Yes, we are, sweetie." The doorbell rang. It was Andrew and Thomas, ready to help with the final stage of the move. "Ready?" Andrew asked, his eyes warm and encouraging. Emma paused, taking in the small space one last time. It had been difficult here. It had been cold. It had been cramped. It had often been lonely. But it had been hers. The place where she had painstakingly rebuilt her life from scratch. The refuge where she had raised Lily alone. The crucible where she had learned to be strong. "Ready," she replied, her voice firm and clear. Andrew expertly took the heaviest boxes. Emma managed the lighter ones. Thomas and Lily raced ahead, already excited, plotting how they would combine their overflowing collection of toys. Andrew's house felt different now. Emma and Lily had visited countless times, sharing meals and playtime, but now the atmosphere was charged. Now it wasn't just a visit. Now it was for good, to live, to build a future, to make a life. As they entered, Lily and Thomas bolted inside, screaming with pure, unadulterated joy. "Lily, come see. I have a surprise for you." What? Emma's eyes widened, her curiosity piqued. Andrew gave her that knowing, mysterious smile. "Of course there is. Come see." They went upstairs. Andrew opened the door to a room that had once served as a quiet home office, currently housing only papers and old boxes. Now it was transformed. It held a small, inviting bed with cheerful floral sheets, a simple white desk, shelves lined with carefully selected children's books, and a sunlit window dressed in light, airy curtains. It was simple, but thoughtfully arranged and intensely cozy, made with profound care. "Is this a mine?" Lily whispered, her blue eyes wide and shining, unable to truly grasp the generosity. "It's yours," Andrew confirmed, smiling down at her. "It's our room." Lily erupted in a shriek of happiness and immediately threw herself onto the bed. Thomas jumped right in beside her. They began bouncing, laughing, thoroughly testing the resilience of the mattress. Emma looked at Andrew, emotionally overwhelmed, her voice catching in her throat. "You didn't have to do that. You've already done so much." "I wanted to," he insisted. "She deserves to have her own room, her own space. And you deserve to have a real home, too." Emma felt the hot sting of tears again, but she swallowed them back fiercely. Not now. Not in front of the children. They went back downstairs and began the slow, satisfying process of unpacking. The children helped the way children do, more playing than actual work, but it was perfect that way. Emma found places for her things in the large, bright kitchen. Her familiar pots and pans, her cherished spices, the dish towels she had embroidered, her favorite mugs. Little by little, the house began to feel less like Andrew's house, and more like their home. Lily's vibrant drawings were hung proudly on the refrigerator with colorful magnets. Toys were scattered comfortably around the living room. Laughter echoed easily through the hallways, mingling with the comforting smell of fresh coffee. Thomas took Lily's hand and said, with the utmost gravity, "Lily, now we're real siblings." Lily returned the gesture with a huge, gap-toothed smile. "Forever, forever." They hugged fiercely and ran off again, already immersed in plotting their next grand game. Emma and Andrew stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching the scene, their hearts utterly full. "They love each other," Emma said softly, tears finally escaping her control. "Like real siblings, like they've always been." Emma looked around the vast, bright space. The house was now full of life, full of laughter, full of love, full of light. "Thank you," she said, looking directly at him, her voice thick with gratitude, "for all of this, for opening your home, for opening your heart to us." Andrew gently shook his head and took her hand. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you." He led her out to the back porch. Outside, the sun was beginning its final descent. The sky was blazing with deep orange, pink, and lilac hues. The trees swayed slightly with the gentle breath of the spring wind. Andrew turned to her, holding both her hands firmly and tenderly in his. "Emma, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen very carefully." She looked at him, her heart thrumming, knowing instinctively that this was important. Perhaps the most important moment yet. "From now on, I want to take care of you both. But not because you need me," Andrew emphasized. "Not because I think you can't manage alone. I know you can. You are the strongest woman I have ever met. But because I need you." He framed her face gently with his hands. "You are my family now. You and Lily. You complete us. You complete me and Thomas. You fill the empty spaces we didn't even know we had. And I don't want to live without you anymore." Emma let the tears fall freely now. They were tears of relief, of arrival. "I ran from the past for so long, trying to find a safe place. A place where Lily and I could be happy, where we could breathe. And I searched so hard. I fought so hard. I worked so hard. And in the end, I found you. We found each other that Christmas night. And since then, everything has changed." She squeezed his hands tightly, a fierce commitment in her gaze. "We chose this family, Andrew. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't out of necessity. It wasn't because I needed help. It was purely out of love. Because we love each other. Because the children love each other. And I want to stay. I want to build this with you. I want to see our children grow up together. I want to wake up every day next to you. I want to stay forever." Andrew pulled her into a fierce, tight hug, embracing her completely, anchoring her. Emma rested her head on his chest, listening to the rapid, strong beat of his heart against her ear. "I love you," Andrew whispered into her hair. Emma closed her eyes, the tears wetting his shirt, finally allowing herself the vulnerability of the truth. "I love you too, so much." They stayed there, embraced, while the spectacular spring sunset painted the world in warm, fiery colors around them. Later, when night had fully fallen and the house was settling into quiet, comfortable domesticity, the four of them were together in the living room. Thomas and Lily were sprawled on the carpet, absorbed in a new jigsaw puzzle. Emma and Andrew were side by side on the sofa, simply watching, simply present. Andrew put his arm around Emma's shoulders. She leaned into him, sighing contentedly, finally relaxing every tense muscle in her body for the first time in memory. "We made it," she said softly. "Made what?" he asked, kissing the top of her head tenderly. "We built a family, a real family. We did it together." They sat there watching the children, Thomas patiently showing Lily how to identify a corner piece. Lily giggling when she correctly placed a difficult section. Thomas so gentle, so affectionate. And Emma thought about how it all began. A bitter, cold Christmas night. A small, cozy restaurant. A shared plate of food. A boy with a pure, selfless heart who saw suffering and simply wanted to help. A simple gesture. A small act of kindness. A child's instinctive decision that had somehow changed everything. That brought hope where there had been despair. That brought love where there had been deep loneliness. That brought family where there had been only emptiness. Emma looked up at Andrew. He looked down at her and they smiled. That quiet, profound smile of two people who know with absolute certainty that they are exactly where they should be. Because sometimes, a single act of kindness is all it takes. Sometimes, all it takes is one small, deliberate gesture. A simple reach across the void, to fundamentally reroute the trajectory of our existence, changing the course of our lives irrevocably. On that unforgettable Christmas Eve, when the cold outside was matched only by the warmth of his small request, Thomas couldn't possibly have grasped the magnitude of his plea. He wasn't just asking his father to buy two strangers dinner. He was, unknowingly, setting into motion an epic tale, a foundational love story, the genesis of a vibrant new family, the unexpected narrative of a fresh and blessed beginning. Now, years later, gathered snugly in that very living room, bathed in the soft glow of tree lights and the infectious sound of shared laughter, the truth was evident. The four lives, richer, fuller, bound by countless memories, were knitted together seamlessly, permanently intertwined. This wasn't the capricious hand of random luck or some grand, cosmic accident. This was destiny forged not by fate, but meticulously built by conscious choice, cemented by intentional love, and enshrined within the unwavering structure of family. A small boy's purest act of selfless kindness, offered under the starlit canopy of a single, snowy Christmas night, had definitively altered the trajectory of 4 separate souls, ensuring their shared happiness for all time.